Stop motion was first used in 1898 when Stuart Blackton and Albert Smith made the Humpty Dumpty Circus. They made this film by positioning an object in front of the camera and only recorded one frame at a time. Repeating this process and playing back each frame makes it look like objects move. The next film was made 4 years later. Fun in the Bakery was made and used the lightning sculpting technique, which was developed by George Mealy's. This was where title cards were used in the filming to make the film more understandable for the viewer. Joseph Plateau is the first person to create an illusion of movement. He did this by drawing pictures, putting them on discs, and then continuously spinning them to create the illusion of movement. This was the very first type of stop motion. There was no other way of creating stop motion until cameras were invented. Then stop motion was used to create the very first films known as silent films. The Kinetoscope was used many times because it was one of the first ways of visual entertainment. Many animations were created using this device. The zoetrope was first suggested in July 1833 by William Horner. The device consisted of a cylinder with slits which cut vertically in the sides. On the inner surface of the cylinder is a collection of images from a set of sequenced pictures. As the cylinder spins, the user looks through the slits at the pictures across. The scanning of the slits keeps the pictures from simply blurring together, and the user sees a rapid succession of images, producing the illusion of motion. The Praxinoscope is an exhibition first created in 1877. Was the work of a Frenchman named Émile Reynaud. The Praxinoscope was an adaptation of William Horner's zoetrope. The zoetrope had been the top optical toy for roughly 44 years, with the perfect animation without the loss of luminosity in movement, which happened to people using the zoetrope. In 1872, Reynaud expanded on his idea and turned it into a theatrical entertainment. Reynaud showed off his projecting Praxinoscope, giving public performances using long, broad strips of hand-painted frames. Sadly, while the effect was successful, it was also jerky and slow, with the addition of the effort required to creating the films was not easy. In 1888, Thomas Edison got W.K.L. Dixon to work on creating an instrument which does for the eye what the phonograph has done for the ear, which is the recording and reproducing of things in motion. Experiments were done while using the ideas based off a phonograph. Edison had envisioned the projection of light through the microphotographs from inside the cylinder. It was not until October 1888 when Edison's first patent was filed. Some of the names discussed were mutograph and kinesiosgraph. However, the end result was setting on the name kinetoscope. Willis O'Brien was the first person to experiment creature effects. This was a practical test because he used objects, then shone light on them to create shadows, and this would make them appear much larger when on screen. When Willis first started doing this, he was working in a decoration shop making puppets, and when he was working, dinosaur skeletons were being dug up, and this gave him inspiration on some of his first films such as King Kong. Ray Harryhausen was 13 when he first saw King Kong, and after this he had his own ideas inspired off of King Kong, and then worked with O'Brien in 1949 to create Mighty Joe Young. As a child, Phil Tippett was inspired by Ray Harryhausen's classic film The Seventh Voyage of Sinbad and Willis O'Brien's character King Kong. As a student, he always drew designs for characters and ended up sculpting some of his ideas and making animations. He later went to university where he studied fine arts and achieved his degree. After university, he then started to establish connections with teachers and then a friendship with Ray Harryhausen. In 1975, a massive turn in his life was made when George Lucas hired him and John Burke to create the chess animation for Star Wars, and this was when his work began. His career would later garner him many nominations and even 2 Academy Awards. He later founded Tippett Studios, which now works with multiple clients to create animations. Aardman Animations started in 1972, and in 1976 they released the Claymation children's program, Take Heart. In 1986, Aardman Animations collaborated with director Steven Johnson and the brothers Quay to make Sledgehammer. Sledgehammer collected almost every award that year. Claymation has received very well, and this led to the creation of Nina Simon's My Baby Just Cares for Me and Robert Parker's Barefootin' in 1993. Timothy Walter Burton, more commonly known as Tim Burton, has produced the great stop-motion film The Nightmare Before Christmas. The animation utilized visual effects so well that it was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Visual Effects, being the first animated film to do so. Burton's other stop-motion animated movie is Corpse Bride, which he directed with Mike Johnson. The movie was shot with Canon EOS 1D Mark II digital SLR rather than the 35mm film cameras used for Burton's previous stop-motion film, The Nightmare Before Christmas. He used a more expensive, high-quality camera for this movie. The Canon EOS 1D is characterized by its robust processing capabilities and ability to record Full HD 1080p at 120 FPS, which allowed for the film to be smoother than its predecessor. A keyframe is a location on a timeline which marks the beginning or the end of a transition. These are often used for animation to give the animation a more natural feel since they create the illusion of motion. A motion path is a line that represents the spatial movement. Also, a movement path is an animation effect that moves an item, like a picture, on a line. Harold Halibut is a new adventure game that is not out yet, however this game seeks to revive the idea of stop-motion games. Harold Halibut is described as a nautic adventure since the setting of the game is in a spaceship wreck stuck on an unknown planet made up of water. The developers have said that Harold Halibut started out as a dinner table conversation about the adventure games they played as children. Also, they said that welded metal, carefully sewn textiles against tiny wooden floorboards and clay faces the size of walnuts pull the player into Harold's world.